All right, ladies and gentlemen, 6.3 day 1. We're talking about division with polynomials, and we're starting with long division. Now, here we go. Anytime you're doing long division, this is what it looks like. If I'm doing, let's do 2304 divided by 7. The 2304 goes in here, and the 7 would go out here. So how many times does 7 go into 2? It doesn't. How many times does 7 go into 23? It goes in 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have to subtract. That's going to be an important theme today. We subtract, we get 2, and we drop down the 0. Now, how many times does 7 go into 20? It goes in twice. 2 times 7 is 14, so we subtract again, and we get 6. Bring down the 4. How many times does 7 go into 64? It goes in 9 times, I believe. 9 times. 9 times 7 is 63, and I subtract, and I get 1. So, a couple of different ways you can write your answer back. In middle school, or elementary school, you'd write 329 remainder 1, because 1 is the remainder. You could also write this answer as 329 and 1/7. All right? So that's what we have for our solution there, or our quotient, since this is a division problem. Now, when we're talking about, let me do another example real quick. So let's do 640 divided by, and say, how many times does 16 go into it? So how many times does 16 go into 64? 64, it goes in 4 times. 4 times 16 is 64. We subtract, we get 0. We bring another 0 down. How many times does 16 go into 0? 0 times. 0 times 16 is 0. We subtract, we get 0. So this would be, the answer would just be 40, since 0 was a remainder. Meaning, 640 divided by 16 equals 40. Also, I would know that 16 times 40 equals 640. So that's what division means, and you have to know that before we go on and do these examples. Otherwise, you're not going to understand exactly what's going on. We also know that since 16 goes into 640 times, it is a factor. So we're finding factors. And otherwise, we have a factor but with a remainder. Okay, so all of these will have a remainder. This is long division with polynomials. X minus 7, what we're dividing by, goes on the outside. X squared plus x minus 56 goes on the inside. And so we're showing how we're doing it. So that's why just writing the answers is not going to be okay today, or in the future. So I'm going to go really slowly over this first example. Here we go. What do you multiply by x to get x squared? Well, you're going to multiply by x. So x times x, we're taking this now multiplying it by all this, is x squared. X times negative 7 is negative 7x. I'm going to pause there and just highlight a few things here. One, when I said, would you multiply by x to get x squared? That went over here because it's lined up with this one. Okay? Then I took this and I distributed it to that binomial, giving me this. Now, the trick here is we have to subtract now. We have to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to take it one step at a time. Here we go. What is x squared minus x squared? Well, that's going to be 0. And you should have gotten that 0 there because we want that to go away. Then, what is x minus negative 7x? Once again, x minus negative 7x. Well, that would be x plus 7x, which is why I'm going to put 8x right there. Okay. Now, I've done all I can there. We're going to drop down this negative 56. And now I ask myself the same question I did before. What do you multiply by x to get this first term, 8x? Well, you should multiply by a positive 8. So now we're going to take this positive 8 and multiply it by that binomial. So 8 times x is 8x. 8 times negative 7 is negative 56. So here's the tricky part now, as if the rest of it wasn't tricky. We have to subtract these two, right? These two binomials. So 8x minus 8x is 0. And then negative 56 minus negative 56. Negative 56 minus negative 56. That'd be negative 56 plus 56, which, yes, ladies and gentlemen, will be 0. So we ended up getting this, which is a factor. All right, there's no remainder. All right, which means this goes in evenly. One thing that you should know is because it's that x squared plus x minus 56. If I were to factor this, I would get x minus 7 and x plus 8, which should make some sense because there's x minus 7 right there, and here's x plus 8 right there. It's like saying 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3. Is 12 the same thing as 4 times 3? It sure is. And that's just what we did here. We took this polynomial, divided it by a factor, and got it another factor. This one, there was no remainder. It went in evenly. Okay? Now, on number 2. All right, on number 2, we're going to take b squared plus 16b plus 64, and that goes on the inside. B plus 8 goes on the outside. All right. So now, what do you multiply by b to get b squared? Well, that would be b. B times b is b squared. B times 8 is 8b. And yes, we have to subtract this whole thing. All right? So b squared minus b squared, that's 0. Got to have it there. Now, 16b minus 8b. 16b minus 8b, that's going to be 8b. And then I drop down the plus 64. And then I ask myself the same question we have to keep asking ourselves. What do you multiply by b to get 8b? That would be a positive 8. And positive 8 times b is 8b. Positive 8 times 8 is 64. And we are going to subtract this binomial from the other binomial. 8b minus 8b is 0. 64 minus 64 is 0. So we end up again with this. All right, no remainder, so that's going to be our quotient. Find one that this would be okay. Let's try this one. This one's a little bit more difficult. So 8p squared minus 18p plus 4. Now I have p minus 2 on the outside. Okay, so let's get started. What do you multiply by p to get 8p squared? Well, first you need to multiply by 8, and then you need another p. So now I'm going to take this 8p and multiply it by all that. So I get 8p squared minus 8p times negative 2 is negative 16p. All right, so we have to subtract. 8p squared minus 8p squared is 0. Now, negative 18p right here minus negative 16p. That's like negative 18p plus 16p. That'll be negative 2p. And then I drop down my positive 4. All right, now the same question we have to keep asking ourselves. What do we multiply by p to get negative 2p? That's going to be a negative 2. So negative 2 times p is negative 2p. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. And ladies and gentlemen, we end up not having any remainder again. This is nice because negative 2p minus negative 2p is 0, and 4 minus 4 is also 0. So that's going to be my quotient right there.